What's up? Welcome to MyFi, episode 2. Glad you're here. Hey, listen, if you haven't subscribed wherever you're at, wherever you're listening right now, if you're on Apple or Stitcher or Google, or maybe you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe. I don't talk about that much, but we'd love for you to click subscribe so you can get updates when we upload new episodes. And if you haven't, leave us a review or a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. That's really helpful for MyFi. I really appreciate it. And you can follow us on social media everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere at MyFi Podcast, MYFI Podcast on social everywhere at MyFi Podcast. Follow us, subscribe, rate, review, all that sort of stuff. We appreciate you listening. Glad you're here. Let's get into it. Awesome. Man, this interview, you guys are going to love. It's excellent. We got Andy Prince on the show. Andy's in a band called Manchester Orchestra. Also plays with an artist, Kevin Devine, and so we're gonna get into it. But man, I was up late last night. I actually went to see the Stadium Tour here in Atlanta. It was the opening date of the Stadium Tour. The Stadium Tour has been supposed to happen since 2020. Since May of 2020, my brother and I got our tickets in November of 2019, and obviously COVID happened, and then things were still going on in 2021, and so it was 2.5 years in the making for us to go see the show. It was at Truist Park, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard. It was amazing. It was like 70,000 plus people in Truist Park. It was crazy, awesome. But we were up late screaming all these songs that are way too high for anybody to sing. But it was really cool. I don't know if you think about your first concert much, but you should. It's really inspiring. Sometimes, first concerts are crazy. Whenever I talk to people like, hey, what was your first musical experience? Talk to a guest, and you get stuff all over the board. My first concert was Poison, actually, and I haven't seen them since 1990. It was the Flesh and Blood tour. Slaughter opened on that show, and I just gotten my first guitar for Christmas in 89. And so in 90 for my birthday, my dad, my brother, some friends of my brothers, all of us went to see the show. And it was awesome and super inspiring as an 11-year-old seeing just rock and roll music live. And the bands all sounded great last night. It was really fun. Like everybody's singing along. It was a blast. I don't know if it's coming to your town, but go see it. I don't know if that's your thing. It's my thing, is what it is. I love hair metal. I get picked on a lot for that, but it's all good. It's great music, man. There's a bunch of riffs. I want to pick up my guitar and just jam because I heard a bunch of cool music last night. So man, think about your first concert. It's always inspiring to remember. If that band's still around, go see them again. It was really fun to kind of relive some of that stuff with my brother last night. And it was a blast. Also, new tunes. I always feature a record in the beginning of the show that is just kind of inspiring me lately. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video, I'm holding up the vinyl from a group, Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. The album's called Night Roamer. Just came out this year. It's country music in a little bit of a traditional sense, but also like country rock, alternative, alt country sort of thing. I don't know. It's really great. Rolling Stone has done a feature lately on Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. They're out on tour right now. You should check them out at Sarah Shook and the Disarmers on social media and listen to this album, Night Roamers. It's really, really great. If It's Poison is a great track on this record. Been Loving You Too Long is a great track on this record. You should go check it out. It's just really cool. It's a little bit different. I went from hair metal today in the opening all the way to, alt country rock stuff. But anyway, go check it out. And on the show today, we have Andy Prince. I mentioned a little while ago. Andy is the bass player for Manchester Orchestra. Andy's been with the band since 2013. He is a fantastic human being. One of the most genuine, kind people I've ever met. I actually met Andy, man, more than a decade ago. He was in a band called the Gills, which we talk about just a little bit. I was in a band called the Carolinas, and we shared some shows together and got to know each other. He and his brother, Matt Prince, were when they were in the Gills together. Matt plays drums. They were just a phenomenal rhythm section. to watch and listen to. They just play with so much energy. A lot of cool people in that band. Nathan Dillahay, Alan Castleberry, Jesse, the singer, man, just, it was a great band. And we enjoyed playing little shows with them. But Andy's gone on to play with Manchester. He's been with them since 2013. He played on the Cope record, the Black Model of the Surface record, and the most recent Million Masks of God record, which was in my top 10 records of 2021. If you haven't listened to the Million Masks of God by Manchester Orchestra, you should go listen to that record because it is amazing. Andy also plays with Kevin Devine, who's an amazing indie artist. You should go listen to him as well. And Kevin and Manchester Orchestra have done some joint albums under the name Bad Books, I think is what it is. I should have written that in my notes, but I think that's what it is. And those are cool, like joint albums. I wasn't really familiar with those, but I was like clicking through, just listening to some things I knew that Andy was a part of, getting ready for the podcast, and came across those records and was like, wow, this is super interesting. So I'm going to listen to those some more. I hadn't had a lot of time to get into those tunes. Andy's awesome. He loves to fish. He loves skateboarding. He's just a fun guy. And he recently, in the last couple of years, moved back home to Pensacola, Florida, where he's from. And he's at Andy Prince on social media. You should go follow him. He's just great. I tried to, in the interview, I'm trying to talk him into posting more videos of him and clips on social of him playing bass, because he's such an inspiring bass player. So if you follow him on social, you should just message him and tell him to post more bass videos, because the dude can just play. And he's like a really smart, riffy, melodic bass player. And so you really love him. We talk about a lot of great bands in this episode. So check the show notes. I always list all the bands that we talk about, so you can go check them out. And there's some, applicable links to things in the show notes. So go check that out. And enjoy this conversation I had with my friend Andy Prince. What's up, Andy?
What is up?
How
are
live. Man,
it's good, man.
It's good to see you, dude.
You too.
If you don't know, like, just to the listeners real quick, like, I always like talk to the guests for a little while before we like start recording. And Andy and I were talking, I was like, man, we need to like hit red, like, and start recording. Cause we were
just chatting away.
Yeah. Just catching it up, dude. Where are you? Tell us where you're at right now.
I'm back home in my hometown, Pensacola, Florida. I just moved back a year ago. I grew up here and then moved away to Nashville for 10 years and felt like that was a nice chunk of my life and learned a lot and loved it. But then it was time to come home last year after the pandemic and everything. And it's been like nice. I feel like it's been good for my soul and my mind, because everything kind of slowed down a little more. And me and my wife are super happy here. And I mean, you're a Florida man too. I think you can understand.
Yeah. I lived down there for 12 years, dude. I enjoyed, obviously the pandemic was terrible, but I did enjoy people being home and making content and posting stuff. And one of the things I was going to tell you I love so much, whenever you post bass videos, dude, like, you don't do that enough. You need to post more, even in like with you just rehearsing and learning songs. I just love watching you play bass. So you should do that more, dude.
Well, thanks, man. I always feel conflicted about that, because it's such a weird, like, anything online that feels like a flex or could be flexy is always, I don't know. It's just an insecurity for me, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I don't want it to be like, oh, look what I can do. It's just kind of entertaining, because I love watching other people's videos usually. Some of them can be a little douchey, but I like a lot of drummer videos, because drums sound awesome on Instagram. Bass, usually, like, you see someone playing something and they're just like playing air guitar. You can't hear anything just because it's too low. You're like, dude, I can't hear what you're doing. So I almost have to like turn on fuzz or something to make it.
I love I think it's inspiring, dude. I don't think it's like, like, look at me or whatever. It's super inspiring, especially when you're learning stuff. Like, I think there was one, you were like brushing up on some stuff for the last Manchester tour you guys did. And I was watching it going, dude, I just love watching you play bass. Even like back in the day when we knew each other, and watching you and your brother, Andy's brother, Matt, is a great drummer. And they were in a band called the Gills, a band I was in, did some shows with. And man, we were always in awe going, oh my gosh, the Prince brothers, dude, they're slaying it.
Those days ruled, man. Panama City. What was the name of that? We played at a big church for a couple shows.
Yeah, there was a venue there called Axis.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of good venues up and down the panhandle there.
So you're not there anymore. You said you're north of Atlanta. Where are you exactly?
Yeah, I'm in North Atlanta, up 85, just past Lawrenceville, if you know where that is, like Mall of Georgia.
How close are you to Alpharetta?
We're about 45 minutes, not far. Okay. Actually go over there too. This record shop, actually, I have a shirt on, Mojo Vinyl. They're over in Roswell, which is really close to Alpharetta, so I go over there quite a bit.
Well, that's where Alpharetta is where all the Manchester guys are, so I'm there all the time.
Yeah. Oh, nice, dude. Well, we should hang out, man. Actually,
all those guys live there, and that's where the studio is and stuff, so we're there a lot. Nice,
yeah. And I know Dan Hannon.
That's a buddy of mine.
Yeah, he lives very close to me. He's in Buford, and we haven't really hung out since the pandemic. Unfortunately, I need to hit Dan up. Dan, if you're listening, I need to hit you up.
I love Dan, man. He rules.
He's awesome, man. You've been how long you been playing bass, dude? How long you been playing music?
Well, a really long time. I mean, I had a very musical family that brought us up like when we were, like toddlers almost. They would bring us up to sing these old Southern gospel songs in church and like buy us, a treat at the gas station afterwards. And little did we know we were like, in training to perform, I guess. At least like our parents wanted us to sing in church and stuff. So, but at a really young age, my grandpa played bass and got me this tiny little miniature bass, and I would play on stage next to him, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I would just try to like imitate what he was doing. And I didn't really, I played guitar for a while, and I just never got serious about either for years. I just kind of stayed played the same like 4 chords over and over. And then my brother got a drum set and started playing, and he progressed so quickly, just so far beyond kind of the pace that I could learn at. But then that kind of pushed me. I was like, well, shit, I should probably try a little harder. So we got a few lessons. We didn't go crazy. I wish we would have got more, but my parents and grandparents were kind of willing to pay for us to at least have local lessons. And then that transferred to started playing in church and the youth group. And then that's where we got our hours in. And me and Matt started playing together in the worship band, and we did that for years. And that's where it was like, after a really long, it took so long to get any better, but then just the time we put in is, it's like, if you can't play decently by now, this is not for you. So that's kind of where it came from. And then we eventually transitioned out of worship music into wanting to be in a rock band. We actually tried to turn our worship band into a rock band and did. And then that's a whole story in itself. Was made a record, and then we got in this weird falling out with the church, and that band dissipated, and then we found the Gills, and that was like the coolest experience ever, because that transition, when we met Jesse and all those guys, he had just started kind of feeling out his songwriting in a way that was like really fun and different than what was like our scene around us. It was like, it was like the hardcore kind of emo scene was blossoming around here, and that's everything. Everyone had started a hardcore band and wanted to be a screamer and wanted to throw their guitar around, and all that was, some of those bands are pretty cool, but most of them weren't. And the scene was just weird. And we were playing like, Jesse was, our first EP was called Smile. You know what I mean?
I remember that record.
We were playing like Beatles-esque, like fun, happy kind of, it's hard to explain at the time, but we would play that type of music but supercharged, because me and Matt just couldn't help ourselves but overplay and be super loud. Yeah. And it turned that into like this kind of power pop, Anyways, our first shows were so much fun because of that, because you could feel the energy that we had, and people really reacted to it early on. And those were probably some of my favorite musical experiences were those first shows, because a bunch of kids would just show up and start hopping around, you know? And I was like, oh man, this is exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I remember the Gills being like a super high energy kind of psychedelic 60s, 70s sort of thing. And you guys were great, man. I mean, every time you guys would come over to like our end of the Panhandle, we were always so stoked for that. I love all those memories, like in that time period when you were really getting hungry for music. Did you have like a point where you heard a record and you were like, oh my gosh, like this stamped something on my heart or in my mind or my soul, where I was just like, I love music. I remember when I heard this song or this album and it like was a linchpin moment in my life kind of thing.
Yeah. It took a little while, but I do have I have this memory. My buddy Daniel Fox, I got to give him a lot of credit. It's like right around the time that we were first starting to like drink and tried smoking weed, and he like curated this night where he's like, you guys just come over to my house. I got something to show you. And we went over there and we were hanging out, and he had like blacked out his whole apartment and put all these like glow in the dark stars, and it was this whole vibe. And then he had a projector with a big screen and a nice sound system. And, you know, we all smoked out of his bong and got like insanely high. And we were, you know, to the point of like, I'd never felt that type of thing before. And then he turned on the My Morning Jacket live Okanokos DVD. Have you ever seen that?
No, I remember the first record, My Morning Jacket, with like Wonderful Man and stuff on it. And then the record after that, I think, had like Holding On to Black Metal. Some of the stuff. Like, I loved all those records, but I never saw that live thing, no.
This is like the first song I think they play on there is Wordless Chorus, and
yeah, that's a great tune.
It's live at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and the way it was filmed was perfect, and it sounded amazing, and we were all just like, you know, in outer space already, and we were so glued to that thing and watched every second of it, and it honestly did change. It like changed my perspective on what you could be as a live band. And I was just the whole thing, I was just so blown away. That was a pretty like impactful transitional moment, because I was like, man, I want to sound like that band. They seem free. He's just kind of walking around, and they're not trying to, they felt authentic. They didn't feel like they were like putting on, they just felt like a bunch of like stoners from Louisville playing exactly what they wanted to play. And that was pretty inspiring. So yeah, I think that changed things.
That's awesome. Authenticity does that, man. I came to, what in Pensacola, Mobile. I think it was the Sanger Theater in Mobile, Alabama. We drove over one night to see Ryan Adams play, and this was like 2008 or 9. And it was a couple, a bunch of friends of mine from Panama City, and we saw Ryan Adams, and we left that night. We're like, dude, we need to start a band. Like, I hadn't been in a band in a really long time, and it was the same thing. It was just like it was a Cardinals, Ryan Adams and the Cardinals show. And I don't know, man, it was just like, he was being real and crazy. And, we were just like, man, we want to do that. And that's how the Carolinas, the one of the bands I was in, that we, shared some shows together.
Oh yeah. I remember that play. Y'all were awesome, dude. That was at the Access Church, right?
Yeah. At that venue there. Yeah, it was. And I don't know, we probably did a couple shows there, but it's the same thing. Like, when you experience something, I think, really authentic, there's something that latches on, to you.
Yeah.
Was there like, early on, I know you said, you have a lot of memories of the church, and that's where you got your kind of 10,000 hours in, but was there like a show you saw early, or maybe even your first like live music experience outside of church that you had that was like impactful for you too?
Yes. I'm so grateful for this. There was a festival here called Springfest in Pensacola years ago.
Okay.
And I was actually thinking about this for this podcast, and right before we got on, I was just Googling pictures and when it was, because I was like, I saw the Doobie Brothers, and I was really young, and they were so good, and it ended up, I thought it was like 10 years old. It was actually in 2003, so I was around 15. But that's still really young. When I think about myself as a 15-year-old kid, like that's a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I played music already, but I didn't really take it super seriously.
Totally.
And we went to that show, and I just remember there's like stacks of speakers on either side that were like sky high. It's this huge stage. And the way they introed the show is they just put like it sounded like 1,000 Harley Davidsons revving up at the same time.
Wow.
Through the PA, as loud as it could be. So that's the sound that's coming through, and I'm sitting there like getting my hair blown back, and then all these old dudes come out and start destroying. It was like so. Because I remember the guitar player had like long gray hair down to his butt, and like. One of the first songs, he like skid out on his knees to the front of the stage and was doing this guitar solo. And I'm just standing there like, oh my God. And it's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
The bass player is this like 7 foot tall black man with just a leather vest on with no undershirt. And he's like ripped, and his hands are like, this big, like
yeah, bass player hands.
They just cover his Rickenbacker bass, and he's up there. I don't know, the whole thing, everything about it. I feel like if I could see myself at the show, it was like, jaw down, like eyes open type of moment the whole time. And the fact that they were older dudes too, I was just, all of it was like, you can do this. You can be an old cool guy that like kills. So that was a huge thing, because I was like, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to do that for sure. And so not that was the only factor that made me want to do that, but I was like, I'm going to give it a go. Like if I can, any way, shape or form, make this happen for my life, that would be incredible. So,
yeah, I think once you see someone make something possible for you, like at the right age, and you get this hunger, it's like really hard to not go for it. The first show I ever saw was I was 11. It was my 11th birthday. My dad, my older brother, and some of us went to see Poison and Slaughter on the Flesh and Blood tour in 1990, dude. It was unbelievable, and I talk about this often. I get made fun of for my affinity for hair metal. I just love it so much. It's so fun, and it's so challenging to play. Like, a lot of those guys were incredible guitar players, so it's like really fun to learn, all that sort of thing. And we were talking a little bit before the show started. I saw the stadium tour last night, which has been 3 years in the making, but it was, we literally bought our tickets in November of 2019. And
oh my God.
Yeah, it was supposed to happen in 2020. It was supposed to happen in 2021. It finally happened. Joan Jett, Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard was the lineup. And 70 something thousand people at Truist Park, the Braves baseball stadium here in Atlanta. It was amazing, dude. And I haven't seen Poison since then. And dude, they were incredible last night. They played fantastic.
Were they the best of all those bands?
I would say Def Leppard was the best. Def Leppard is just like really professional. They've continued to make new music. They just released a new record that's really great. And
wow,
they're being really smart about the way they write for their singer's vocal, like in his vocal ability. Because I think that's the only thing in a band that really like diminishes over time, I guess. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because
the way they used to sing is insane. It's like impossible to sing now.
Yeah. And so they're like writing new music to fit his vocal. And he was a great front man. Poison was a great party. Motley Crue sounded great. Their singer's like struggling.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's iconic, but I mean, back to the point, it was like, Poison was my first show, and I just remember going like, I have to do that. I have to play guitar. I have to. Like, that's just amazing to me, And
oh my God,
yeah, I know. It's so funny. Like, and I don't know. They're influential. I don't know. Do you still listen to the Doobie Brothers? Is that like a band you would go, they're in my top 5 or top 10 or whatever?
I wouldn't say top 5, but I still listen to classic rock all the time. That's kind of what got me going when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And there's a radio station here called 96.1 The Rocket.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's like they have had the same playlist ever since I was growing up here as a kid. They've maybe added like 3 songs in that time frame, which I actually love because I still turn it on every once in a while, and I'm like, I basically can almost guess what is going to be playing. You know what I mean? It's like More Than a Feeling or something's going to be playing, or whatever, Blue Oyster Cult song, or Rush, or and then on Tuesdays it's 2 for Tuesday, so whatever band it is, they play 2 songs in a row, and if it's Queen, you're like, oh yes, so I still get excited about that stuff. I nerded out about that a lot when I was younger, especially me and Matt, my brother. Since we were rhythm section, we got obsessed with Rush and all those types of bands because they are so technical and so good.
Yeah.
And the rhythm section was insane. And it's, it's so funny because my family's musical, and my mom is an incredible piano player and organist, and my dad plays guitar, and I laugh so hard at the "I love you, man" part where he's trying to show his fiance Rush. You know what I mean? The like slap the bass scene. Because that was basically that kind of happened with like me and my brother and my mom. Is there's this funny thing like Rush? If you don't know Rush fans, there's no girls there at all. Yeah, it's just dudes. Like there's footage of Rush concerts. It's literally just a sea of dudes doing what they were doing in that movie, like yelling at each other the lyrics and like doing it's so spot on. It's hilarious. And we tried to show, like, my mom was like, I just don't get it. I don't understand this band. And we, of course, we're like, wait, have you heard this song? And like put it on for her, and just her face of just like, like it's never gonna work. But anyways, hilarious. I still love that band, and still got majorly influenced by them early on.
Yeah, I love the bands that stick with you. Was that let me ask you this. What was the first piece of music, CD, probably based on your age, that you bought with your own money?
That's actually a surprising one. So there's a reason for this. Okay. My brother was like the pioneer in our lives for finding music. He always, he was the one that would download music illegally and make us burned, copies of whatever, or he'd make his own mixes, or he would like just find stuff. And I was his younger brother, and I was kind of just following him around, like, oh, I'll listen to that too, which I credit him because he found some amazing stuff back in the day. Yeah. But that created a pattern of like, I don't go look for music on my own, really. I just listen to what Matt's listening to.
Nice.
But, there's of course a phase when we were like early teenagers, where we listened to punk rock, and we would buy like those Punkorama compilation albums. I don't know if you remember those, and it would have like every, Pennywise and NoFx and all these kind of like, staple punk bands. And we loved it because we weren't, my parents weren't crazy strict on that stuff, but there was some pretty like raunchy stuff on those albums. And we were church kids, and if they would have found it, they would, have been like, you guys can't be listening to this. Like, what the hell is this? But I really loved MXPX. And that was a band that we could listen to. They were like kind of a Christian band. They're on Tooth and Nail. And I bought their live album called At the Show. That was my first CD I ever bought with my own money. I just went into the store and saw it, and I was like, yep, that's it. And it's actually an incredible album. Like they kill it live. And there's this, it's like the second to last song on the album. I think it's called The Theme Fiasco. And it's just an instrumental. And the dude's a killer bass player. It's this really cool bass line and like really impressive kind of, arrangement. And that was a big thing for me when that came on. I was like, holy crap, dude. Yeah. This band rules. And I still will turn them on every once in a while just to kind of reminisce. But like, I love some old punk shit. I even I'll listen to like old Blink-182 records, and beyond that, I still listen to the Ramones all the time, like in a serious way. That's one of my favorite bands of all time. So that was probably more than a phase.
Yeah. Well, and knowing too, like, just cause I keep up, we still keep up together, even though we haven't talked in a really long time until now, on social media. And I always see you skating, and skateboard culture, like in the early 2000s, late 90s, like X Games had hit up. I don't know if you've seen the Tony Hawk documentary, but it's on HBO. It's amazing.
I need to watch that. Yeah.
It's amazing, man. You would love it. Just knowing that you still skate and are actually really good at skating and stuff. And that whole scene like gave life to the punk movement again, like the soundtrack to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Oh yeah.
You know, all that stuff was so huge for punk music. And there was a lot of bands and songs I was reminded of from the soundtracks of those Pro Skater video games. You know, punk was so big.
Oh yeah. That was so, yeah, I talk about this every once in a while, but it's, you know, we skated our whole, like every day for years. That's kind of all we did. We did that and played music. And then at some point music took over more, but skateboarding was everything for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was a great outlet for us because we were in Pensacola. There wasn't a ton to do, but we had some skate buddies and we had a little skate park called Deep South pretty close to our house. It was this old warehouse ran by like a bunch of druggy dudes that I can't believe it lasted as long as it did. It started out awesome though. Like the guy that built it, and towards the end, it was kind of a sketchy place to be in, but it was a great skate park. And, the stuff that they were blasting through their speakers there, and not only that, but skate videos that we were watching at the time, we would watch them, like we would get home from skating and watch the same skate videos over and over and over. And especially if it rained, which it did all the time in Florida, we would just watch skate videos and we watched the same ones. And when, a new one would come out, it would be super exciting. And then there was 411 VM, which was a video magazine, and they would put out, they would send you a VHS, I think every month. So they were anyways, the soundtracks to those videos was always awesome new music, or maybe not new, but it was this is where I heard Fugazi the first time, and Built to Spill, and all these bands I'd never heard of. And not only did I hear them, I heard them over and over and over while watching an incredible skate part to it. So it ingrains it in your head in a weird way. You have a visual to go along to. It's like one of your favorite skate parts by one of your favorite skaters that spent 2 years filming a part. Yeah. That is 5 or 10 minutes long. It's like a compiled footage of that. And if you pick the perfect song for that, it'll be iconic forever. Like Jamie Thomas is a great example. His parts, there's a video called Dying to Live, the Zero video. The soundtrack to that is insane. Just go look through the track listing. It's amazing. So, yeah, anyways, they use classic rock too. They use The Who and Bowie, and that actually fit really well with skateboarding too. It wasn't for a time there, it was all hip hop or it was all punk rock, and then they started realizing if you put a Bowie song to a really good skate part, it's incredible. So yeah. Anyways, skate videos huge with the music that I'm into now.
Totally. What speaking of that, what's a few records or artists that are currently, you talk a lot about classic rock and punk and bands, older bands, or more established bands. But what's something now that's inspiring you? A few albums or artists that you listen to a lot who are just up and coming or really big right now?
I'm really bad about that, to be honest. As far as new music goes, I'm such a dinosaur already. I listen to this. I feel like I listen to the same stuff over and over and over. And every once in a while, someone will send me something I would say that bands that we've toured with though, that's a fun way to find. It's a fun, easy way to find a band. But there's a band called Foxing that's been touring with us for a long time. Yeah, and live they're amazing, and their records are just, it's a really refreshing type of they have that authentic thing about them. They just, whatever comes out of that band, they're a group of eclectic wild dudes, and I don't know how it's in the writing room for them, but that's an inspiring band for sure. You just have to go listen to their records, and then you see them live and they kill. So nice. That band, there's a band that was just on tour with us, Michigander too, that they just moved to Nashville, and they have some of the cleanest, most smart pop songs I've heard in years. Nice. It's the type of thing where you could be a good band and be an opener band for like the wrong band, if that makes sense. Like,
sure, yeah.
You may be on a sweet tour with a lot of people, but a lot of those people might not care about you at all. And like, there may be a small percentage of the crowd that does, but this band got the entire crowd singing for them without ever seeing them before. It was like some people that were there knew who they were, but they're an opener band and they would get the crowd like chanting along with certain parts of the songs. And I was like, oh my God, like that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And they're first of 3 on a tour with Manchester. And we would watch them side stage and be like, these dudes rule. They just have like a charm about them. And all the guys are really sweet and they're a little bit younger than us. And that gets me stoked because I think they're going to do really well. And they have new music coming out. Anyways, check out both of those bands. That's an inspiring kind of, that's what I've seen recently. Other than that, I keep listening to the same old shit. I probably listen to like Not a Surf more than any other band.
Man, I
that's
love
like my go-to
that band. The bass, the bass stuff on those Not a Surf records, like the Weight is a Gift record.
Oh my God, yeah.
The bass parts on that record, so good.
Dude, the song "Do It Again" is so good.
Yes, yeah. The bass that opens that bass and drums that opens that track, so dope. I'll fanboy just a little bit on you because the last. I got introduced to Manchester Orchestra at the Simple Math record, which I know was right before you. But the recording of that album is so great. It sounds so great. So I listened to that, and then Cope came out, which I think was the first record that you were a part of. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Killer record. Yeah. Then everything has just like, to me as a fan, everything has just like increasingly, the next record's better. The next Black Mile was amazing. And then Million Masks of God was actually, I do an Instagram post thing at the end of every year of my top 10 albums of the year. And Million Masks of God was in my top 10 of that year.
Awesome.
And was it 2021? Yeah, it was 21. Yeah. Dude, it's phenomenal. And I was listening back through it 2 days ago, just getting ready for this, just refamiliarizing myself with some of the stuff that you've been a part of. And dude, that record's so good. Just song after song. I was like, God, this is my favorite song on the record. The next song comes on, I'm like, no, this is my favorite song on the record. Like,
that's awesome, man.
And also I listen. Yeah, and I know that you also go out with Kevin Devine, and there's a connection with Manchester there because they did that book 3.
Bad
I think
Books.
is what the record was called. It was kind of a It was kind of a
the band is Bad Books, and they've done they've done a few records as that together.
Yeah, it must have been the third one that I listened to, but it was great too. I know you've been out with Kevin. You've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff. If you never heard Kevin Devine, like, incredible indie artist, just amazing. What has been, this is a tough one, what has been your favorite song or record that you've been a part of making in your career so far? And maybe it's not even with either of those two bands. Maybe it's with somebody else.
Yeah, there's different experiences for everything. It makes me think about like the Gills records we made in my old crusty rental house that we called the crooked house because it was about to fall down. And we had our amps and everything just set up in our bedrooms for days, and we're sleeping with like all the gear around us. And that's a type of memory that I cherish, and that was a super fun experience. But as far as like after making quite a few records with people and being in Manchester for a long time, and us kind of figuring out what we want to do and what sound we want to make, and Million Masks was like, okay, I'll say this: a Black Metal to the Surface was a little tougher as far as like the vibe. It was a grind. It was fun to make, but it was like the mood was pretty serious the whole time, because it just felt like it felt like a lot of pressure. We had made Cope, which was a totally wild experience. I started in that band by stepping into the room and helping them write that record, and I had never even played with them before. But they were transitioning their bass player, and they needed someone in the room, and so I ended up writing the whole record. And I would travel up to Alpharetta to their studio, and for like a week at a time. and we would just sit in a live room together and start with a riff, like from A to Z on a song, and play it 1,000 times until it became a song. And the whole time, there's 4 members of the band at the time, and no, 5 was in the band because our keyboard player Chris was still there at the time. Anyways, all of us smoked cigarettes except for Tim, the drummer. And we would chain smoke cigs all day inside the live room until there was a cloud overhead that hovered.
Oh my God.
It was disgusting. And it was just like us trudging through that until we would, we had mics on the whole time. So we would go back and listen to whatever we'd made and see if it was far enough and be like, okay, we'll put that down as a demo. Let's go start working on another riff. And it took forever, but it ended up, and it was like the loudest. I can't believe I'm not deaf from that. It was so loud in the room, is unbelievable. All the Cope songs are just heavy, which I was having a blast because that was like, I had never played that heavy of rock and roll music, and it was exciting for me. I was like, this is going to be fun. So moving on, I'm like backtracking here. Moving on, that record, I love it for what it is. It was an interesting time where we weren't on a label as a band and independently made it. And then a few years went by. We played a bunch of shows. We toured that, and then when we started writing again, we went to this beautiful cabin in Asheville, North Carolina, that my buddy Josh let us stay in, and we set up in the live room and moved all the furniture out. And there's all this glass and it's tall ceilings, and this. It's idyllic. It's like when you're younger, I would see, these cool bands like Radiohead, in this cool building, or a picture of them riding somewhere and all this gears around. And it was that type of situation of like, oh, finally I get to, to be in a proper room and be away for like 16 days, hide away in a cabin. And it was snowing outside, and it just there's a fire going the whole time in the fireplace. And it created this vibe that was like, I think it really helped us figure out whatever sound came out of that. Like, cause we were willing more to try like A to A be a song too. It's like, let's play it loud and rock this song rocking and fast. And then let's try it again, but slow and smooth and sexy, and see how that sounds. Oh, cool. And then we would find dynamic, because we like, okay, well, this first verse is going to be chill. And then now we have room to go up and have, more of a dynamic song. And we did that over and over, and we hung one mic from the middle of the room, and we would play the stuff back at the end of the night and have a drink at 5:00 and listen. Wow. And that was cool. And it became a grind once we actually went into the studio, we went to Echo Mountain and made it. And it was just, it's still surprising, like the way it sounds and the songs that came out of that. I feel like we became kind of a new band and created a new sound, at least in my opinion, and bonded as friends. And I'm really grateful for that. It was, now that I think about it, it's a really magical thing that doesn't happen with every band. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And then Million Mask was basically a version of that was just even easier somehow. It's like, once we had gone through making the record process like that, we knew what to do. It was challenging at times, but it seemed like we were just having a really good time. Like, even in the studio, we were just like happy and nice. I was like, oh, it's possible to make a record without like gritting your teeth the whole time and kind of like, tensing your shoulders up. It's like, let's just let this happen. And we had a lot of helpers too. We had Ethan Gruska, and we had Catherine Marks at the helm, and people around us helping us, and the team was right. And I just love all those guys. Everyone's kind of willing to like stretch and do things that when each of us have an idea, it's become more trusting. And that took a long time to build that trust with somebody. Yeah. Or to speak up if you have a good idea but maybe you're scared to get shot down. And now that's kind of, that trust is there, and it's like, it's okay if it gets shot down, or at least we'll try the idea first and make sure if it's going to work or not. And the willingness for everyone to do that is what I think leads to making great things. So
Yeah, it always seems like
there's
it always seems like when I, just following Manchester on social and, keeping up with you and a couple of the guys individually, following them on social media, like that you guys have a great vibe. And so it makes sense that, I said every record feels like it gets better. And you've said every record has felt like it's gotten a little bit easier, like in terms of chemistry. And
Right.
I think that, plays a lot into, making great music. So
it should be that way, I think.
Yeah. And I'm glad that's been the experience for you, man. That excites me so much. And to know that, hopefully you guys are, going to keep making awesome stuff, because Million Masks was just mind blowing. I want to ask,
thank you.
I want to ask you one more question. And this is a tough one too. You get like 3 records that are like Andy Prince's all time favorite records. And you can kind of pick, because I know it's a broad question. Maybe it's the 3 most influential records to you. Maybe it's the 3 you just enjoy listening to the most, like whatever. But a lot of the point of MyFi as a podcast, you said it's hard for you to keep up with new music. Like you don't listen to new music a lot. I find that a little bit hard too. And most of the ways that I find out about new music is talking to creative people, musicians or artists or designers or whatever, that I really trust their taste. And I listen to podcasts or have conversations with people, and they're like you, like, oh, you need to check out this band or that band, and I go, yes, I do. Michigander, I'm gonna go check them out. Or, Foxing,
Right.
I'm gonna go listen to them a little bit more, And so a lot of times this question in the conversation, people go, oh, snap, Andy Prince's, favorite 3 records or whatever. And people will
Right.
go look them up. So you get to pick, but 3 records you just love for whatever reason.
I'm just going to say whatever pops into my head, because if I try to go too deep on this.
Yep. You have to answer quick.
Because yeah, exactly. I'm going to go back and think about the Beatles records that are, what I should say.
Yeah. The credibility records.
Right. Exactly. But what I'm going to say is, I talked about Not a Surf already. Their record Let Go is a perfect record in my opinion. That is, the writing's beautiful. It feels real. All the songs on it are insane. I think the first song I heard on there was Blonde on Blonde. Which is just an incredibly beautiful song. The whole record, I mean, just go listen to it if you haven't already. I've been in love with that band for years and years, and I finally got to see them a few years ago, and ended up meeting the singer. And well, I met all of them, but I was like, basically little kid nervous meeting Matthew Cause, because he's such an influence of mine, and he's the sweetest guy. All of them, of course, were like, they're seasoned dudes. They're a little bit older and they're still doing it. And this super inspiring band. And they sounded perfect live. They played Fruit Fly, and I was crying. I was trying not to show my friends that I'm tearing up over there. It was so, yeah. Anyways, I just love that band so much. I would say, as far as rock and roll goes, one of my favorite bands is Queens of the Stone Age. They exemplify kind of like what I would want to do with rock if that was the only, if that was the only kind of genre I was in. Probably Rated R, their record, is one of the most raw, fast paced, and the tones are insane. It's nice. It's just it's real rock and roll.
That's I need to go listen to that. I don't know that. I mean, I know Queens of the Stone Age, but just the hits, I need to go listen to that.
That record is so nasty. And Songs for the Deaf is also one of my favorite records. That record, I love all the records, but and then I'm going to say a record that I should say, which is OK Computer by Radiohead.
Nice.
Because that's also a perfect record.
But also true.
Yeah. I listen to it. Those are records I listen to over and over still. If I can't think of something else, I'm just like, I'm going to put this on and love it just as much as I did, a week ago when I listened to it. So
totally.
Those would be 3 that pop in my head when you said that.
That's awesome, man. This has been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time out and having a little conversation about music. I love talking about music. It's just so inspiring. There's some records that you mentioned I'm going to go throw on and listen, which I hope happens for
Awesome.
our listeners too. You know, hopefully you heard something. I'm going to put always list all the bands in the show notes, and I'll link up to your social. Andy's just at Andy Prince on Instagram, and if you want to follow him and follow, at Manchester Orchestra, and see what he's a part of and all that sort of stuff. But Andy, I appreciate it, man. I hope you have a great day down there in the Panhandle.
Thank you,
Florida.
man. I got to say too, just, before you go, just you guys from back in the day when I met you guys in Panama City, between you and the Hine brothers and all of us, just always been so gracious and sweet. And I feel like you've consistently been those people through the years. And I really appreciate that, because there's not everyone out there's like that. And the fact that you reached out to me and want to know what's going on with my life, and you're doing this sort of thing with other people, it's good stuff, man. So I really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch, and I should be up that way, and pretty soon. So it'd be cool to see you, and maybe we can hang in with Dan Hannon or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely, man, dude. I appreciate you saying that, and I definitely appreciate you being on the podcast, man. You have a great one.
Yep. See you, Lee.
Thanks, Andy. See, I told you guys, Andy's just a great human being. The dude's just so nice. Andy's a killer bass player, and you got to go check all those records out that we talked about. I just want to say thanks to Andy again for being on the show. Check the show notes for all the bands. Go check out all the stuff we talked about. It was super, super fun. So thank you, Andy. Want to give a shout out to Anchor FM, Riverside FM. That's the platform that we use to do the MyFi podcast. It's super easy, and man, it just makes things so easy to do. We get video, audio all in one place. It's awesome. If you're into podcasting, go check it out. Anchor FM, Riverside FM. I also want to give a shout out to Rigshare, rigshare.com. Rigshare is a website for musicians to share the gear that they use. It's really, really smart. A friend of mine runs that website and app, and man, it's really, really great. I got on there the other day, was updating some stuff on my rig, and it was awesome. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you're a musician, check out rigshare.com. It's really, really great. Man, I am about to go enjoy a little bit of time away, going on a little vacation with the fam, and going to be really, really fun. So enjoy this episode. When I get back, got some great guests lined up. My friend Charlie Parra, who's a guitarist from Peru, is going to be on the show, and we got some great episodes coming up. So follow at MyFi on social, at MyFi Podcast on social media everywhere. Hit subscribe wherever you're listening to. We really appreciate that. Give us a rating, review. Really appreciate that as well. And thanks for listening today. Hope you guys have a great one.